So we've got an MCI air tensioner here. This is for the cooling fans, and it is bypassing air pretty bad internally. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this thing apart, and we have a rebuild kit. We're going to see if this one is rebuildable, and if so, we're going to go ahead and get it rebuilt. Now, it says that this is supposed to be like 50 or 60 pounds of spring pressure. I was able to collapse it fairly easily on the bench, but I went ahead and put it in the press anyway, just in case it's got, you know, a spring that's got stages to it or something. I don't want to be the idiot that finds that out as it shoots it across the shop at me. So there's just a little snap ring right down in there. So I'll get my snap ring pliers, pull that off, and then we're gonna slowly let this thing up and see what happens. Alright, so there's a plate here that goes above the snap ring, so you actually can't get access to the back side. So what I ended up doing was I got one side to pop up with the snap ring pliers, and then I grabbed them with this pair of vice grips and just spun it out around, because you only have an opening through here. I'll show you guys better once we get this up on the bench. Alright, so this had to get worked up and down a few different times, and ended up getting it so this was just sticking up for this groove. So I got a pair of screwdrivers on either side and walked it up. But that is now loose, so in theory, when I release this, it should come up, and we should be able to take it apart. There we go. I think that's got the tension off of it. I'll go put it on the bench and we'll see about pulling it apart. Alright, so this is the air cylinder torn down on the bench. So the way this works is this rod bolts into this piston right here, and this sits on the shaft. This is that part that was snap ringed in. So you can see the problem that I was having is this is the access to the snap ring, and then they put a piece all the way around the top, so that snap ring sits down inside there, so you cannot get to it to help walk it out of the groove. That's why I had to pull it out the way I did. So this has all of its new seals. We have a new O-ring here, there's a new O-ring there, and there's this top seal that's been replaced in there. I've got another O-ring which goes on this rear cap once I get the rear cap out of it. What seems to have been the major problem is there's an O-ring that goes on this shaft, which stops air from just bypassing straight through the piston around the shaft. This O-ring was just disintegrated and gone. So that one is on there. And then right here and here are a set of wiper seals. So one goes that way, one goes this way. At least that's how it came apart. Now, we have a rebuild kit from Luke, and it only has one wiper seal in it. So I'm waiting to get a parts diagram to verify what's going on, but I believe there should be two. So once I can get that, I'll get back a hold of Luke and see what's going on with that. It shouldn't be an issue. I think we're missing one. If we are, I know he's just going to send one out. It won't be an issue. Otherwise, I just want to make sure that this is the right piston and setup that was supposed to be in here, or for the parts kit that was ordered and somebody hasn't swapped it. There's also a piece of felt right there that goes down the center of the spring. So try to get that out of there and get that swapped, but that's not a big deal. So the spring will sit inside of there. You can see that there's a brass piece that stands off that centers that. So this is that spring that we were trying to fight the tension of when we had it in the press to do it. But overall, it's a pretty simple rebuild. If you've ever done a hydraulic cylinder, it's the same thing. It's just air leaks easier than hydraulic fluid. Okay, so we have a parts diagram. So there are two for 18, which is that seal I was looking at. Also, it shows me that 15, the O-ring that I assumed is missing, does go there. Yeah, that's pretty simple. If you guys want, that is the parts listing. If you guys pause, you can go back and... Okay, so we got the other end off. I got the new O-ring on it. It's oiled. There's a new snap ring in there. So just carefully start working it in like that. And then we'll have to get the snap ring compressed, set it down. The good thing about this is you can actually deep seat it with the snap ring fully compressed and then push it back up to set it in its groove, and it'll snap and lock in once you get it there. So as you see, this is seated in there deep now. So now if you just drive this up, the snap ring will seat and this end cap is set. Got it back in the press here. Everything's pretty much reassembled. I just need to get this snap ring set and then push this plate down, and it's back together. Just be careful when you're going together because these lip seals face each other, so you need to make sure the bottom one is fully compressed before you try to slide it down in the cylinder. That pretty much does it for the rebuild. Just make sure you lubricate all the O-rings when you put this thing together. Take your time. You don't want to cut or tear one, because that's just going to make you have to take it apart and do it again. But not too bad. There is spring tension on this, but the spring overall is only just longer than the cylinder. So if you have a 1/2 inch or 1 inch of vertical travel left over, you'll be fine on your press. Overall, not too bad to do.
And so it's coming down to about 65 psi. All right, now we can disconnect this one and do the back.
The back was hanging open the whole time there?
Yeah. And
so we had no bypass from the copper washer.
No leak in there.
So the shaft, that O-ring that went on it to the piston, I actually got rid of that and I put a copper crush washer in because there's no groove milled in there or anything to center that. So that O-ring kept trying to walk its way out anytime you put any amount of tension on it.
All right, let's try it from the back now and listen if anything comes out the pressure relief.
Well, it'll come out the hose that you got off.
Yeah, oh, it's still off. Oh, that's right. I forgot I can put that in.
Nothing. Sealed up.
50, 75 to 100, nothing.
Yep. I just got the little bit of air as it initially traveled out to clear the cylinder, but we're not getting all the bypass leakage we had before.
Okay, success.
Yep, I think that's going to work.
All right, now we're going to fire up so we can, because this thing can't.
But now that I've seen that, I'm going to have to say, anyone rebuilding these, don't put that O-ring back in and get a copper crush washer. Because that was the original failure point, is that that O-ring had failed. So without that, this never would have had to been done. So if you're doing it, go to the copper crush washer. And unless I leave some notes in this video that that opinion has changed, that seems to be the better option.